Welcome to Living by Faith, your bright spot to your Saturday morning. I'm your host, Trillia Newbell, and I am so glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. I don't know what the weather is like for you, but right now it is chilly, but tomorrow it's going to be freezing. And so I hope you are staying warm and enjoying wherever you are. You know, something I lament often is that there are so many books and people in history that I want to read and know more about. There's so many. And I hear about a book or I hear about a person. I'm like, oh, I'd love to read that. It's in my to be read pile. Or, oh, I'd love to learn about that person or culture or whatever it is. There's just so much that I want to know and learn. And for many, they'll be lost to us. We'll never learn about them, or we'll never read their stories, or we'll never hear about them. And, you know, I wonder if G.K. Chesterton is one of those people that for some will be quite familiar. But if I were to guess, many of us have heard little to nothing about his life or ministry. And I'm so excited that there are historians and authors and cultural commentators, all sorts of people who learn about people like Chesterton and then get to share their knowledge with us. And my guest, Ryan Whitaker Smith, is not only familiar with his work, he has written a book that captures Chesterton's reflections on Christmas. And I have just loved reading through this book and reading the book and enjoying some of the things that maybe I wouldn't have known about had I not learned about Ryan Whitaker Smith. Ryan, I am so looking forward to you introducing us to Chesterton today. And I'm thankful for your work that you wrote. His book is called Winter Fire, and we get to learn more about it today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Trillia. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. You know, it's so interesting to me. We were even talking about another Christian artist that I have no clue who is before the show started. And the reality is that there are so many people and so many books. What captured your mind and your heart to want to learn and know about G.K. Chesterton?
Well, let me be clear. I am not a historian or even a G.K. Chesterton expert, but okay. I am a fan, an avid fan of his work. You know, I discovered Chesterton when I was in high school. I went to a small classical Christian high school, and one of his books, one of his novels, actually, the Man Who Is Thursday, was one of the books that was required reading in my English class. And I'm a little ashamed to say I don't think I actually read the entire book. But later I picked up a volume of his Father Brown stories. Chesterton is he's amazing because he wrote so much. He wrote so much that it seems almost impossible to read everything that he wrote in his lifetime. I mean, he wrote, published nearly 100 books and thousands of essays, hundreds of poems. But the thing he's probably most well known for in the wider world is his character Father Brown, who's a detective priest. And there's a series on the BBC now that's been running for many years. It's been very popular. But I picked up a volume of those stories, and that was really my introduction to Chesterton, because I had read a bit of the novel that was assigned in high school. But I just immediately fell in love with how witty his prose was. And I realized later, as I began to read more of his books and sort of his theological works like Orthodoxy and The Everlasting Man, that that wasn't just his voice when he was writing witty detective stories. He kind of maintained this very witty but also very wise voice throughout all of his writing, and I think that's the reason that people love him so much.
Right, and I believe, if I understand right, he was born in 1874. Is that correct? And he died in 1936. So So I'm just putting people in the time period of his life. And if I'm remembering correctly, he inspired C.S. Lewis in a certain way. Is that correct? Do you know that history?
Yes, I mean I know The Everlasting Man in particular was really important to Lewis, and
Right.
an important book he read sort of in the midst of his spiritual awakening. And orthodoxy is really, in terms of Chesterton's theological works, and he would, like Lewis, he wouldn't have described himself as a professional theologian,
Right.
but orthodoxy is probably the most well known of those books that he wrote, sort of in the theology space. But The Everlasting Man is really amazing too, and that one in particular was important to Lewis.
Yeah. It's interesting because we are thinking about Christmas and we're about to, it's upon us, which
I know,
think is,
all of a
yeah, I
sudden.
know. It is here. And I find it interesting that he wrote quite a bit about Christmas, correct? And so,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the amazing thing about Chesterton is you realize very quickly that he wrote a lot about a lot.
Sure.
It seems like there's no subject that he didn't touch on at some point in his writing, because he wrote so much. But yeah, I mean, there was a collection of his writings on Christmas that was published. I think it was in the 70s or 80s, called The Spirit of Christmas, and I think it's not in print anymore. But I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year, and I've always loved Chesterton's reflections on Christmas. And I just thought it would be interesting to compile those into a new volume, and sort of mine his library of writings to find more that maybe had not been collected before. And so that was the great joy, honestly, of this project, was searching those things out and realizing, oh, I knew Chesterton wrote a lot about Christmas. I didn't realize he wrote this much. And so the book contains, I don't know how many quotations, but a lot. And the sort of the devotional section of the book, and we can talk about how the book is structured, but the devotional section of the book contains a quotation or reflection from Chesterton, and then I sort of unpack that into sort of a devotional reflection. And so, but even within those, there are more quotes that are sort of embedded, throughout. So it was, it was a great joy to discover more of his writings about Christmas.
Yes, so I am speaking with Ryan Whitaker Smith. He is an author and filmmaker from Nashville, Tennessee. His film projects include the romantic drama Surprised by Oxford, the documentary The Jesus Music, and a forthcoming adaptation of G.K. Chesterton's comic adventure. You have done so many things, and we're going to be talking about today his book, Winter Fire, Christmas with G.K. Chesterton. Before we talk more about Winter Fire and Chesterton, you said that Christmas is your favorite holiday or your favorite season. Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's all the reasons everybody loves Christmas. It's just, it's. I don't know. I'm a creature of habit, and in my family growing up, we were big on traditions, and so I think the Christmas season sort of all those traditions are still still something that we observe, and of course it gets you in this sort of very nostalgic frame of mind, thinking back on your life and your family, and I just think it's wonderful.
So it's like the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, you like the warm and fuzzies. So tell us one tradition that is something that you love, and maybe other people should adopt this tradition.
Well, of course, I'm a film guy, right? So Christmas movies are a big thing in my house, and I've tried to. I'll give you one that maybe is something people is not part of their traditions. There's a great film. Of course, everybody loves "It's a Wonderful Life," and I do too. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. But there's another Jimmy Stewart movie that I love called The Shop Around the Corner that was made in 1940. Yeah, Jimmy Stewart, Margaret Sullivan, directed by Ernst Lubitsch. And most people know it maybe through You've Got Mail, which was which was a remake of that movie. But it's just it's like a perfect film, I think. And so every Christmas we watch that one. I have to sort of force my younger boys to sit down and watch it. Black and white movie, but it's one of my favorites. So that's one tradition in our house.
I love that, actually, and I'm going to watch it. Thank you. I was telling Ryan before we got on that he asked what are you going to be doing, and I said nothing. I think I'm going to stay in the house for the next 15 days. so now I have at least one movie to watch in my hibernation state. But so is there a tradition that Chesterton has that you captured in Winterfire?
I don't know if there's one tradition in particular, but one of the things that Chesterton talks about, and it's one of the first sort of devotional reflections in the book, is he warns us against celebrating Christmas prematurely. And I think this is like probably the hardest thing for people, for us Westerners in the modern world to sort of wrap our heads around. But we kind of have this mentality of Christmas is on December 25th, and on December 26th it's over. We take our trees down. It's all done. We move on to the new year. And obviously, historically in the church, that's not how it was celebrated. You had the season of Advent, and then you had, the 12 days of Christmas, and so it's a difficult concept for people to wrap their heads around. Even in my own family, I get a lot of pushback when I say, "Hey, we have 12 days," and they're like, "Oh, Dad, stop." Yeah.
Well, Ryan, before you go on, because we are about to go to break, I want us to start there because that's really intriguing to me. I don't know what that would look like. So I want us to dive into what he means by not celebrating Christmas prematurely, because I think there's so many of us that are really intrigued by that. More on Living by Faith when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. I am Trillia, and I am talking with Ryan Whitaker Smith, and we are talking about Chesterton and Christmas and traditions. And before the break, we were talking about not celebrating Christmas prematurely. And I'd love for you to talk about what Chesterton means and what that practically looks like.
Well, Chesterton has a great quote about this, and he says, if it's okay if I read just this section.
Oh, yes, please read.
He says, he's complaining about newspaper articles, editors in magazines bringing out their Christmas articles too soon. And he says that the reader is more likely to be lamenting for the turkey of last year than to have seriously settled down to a solid anticipation of the turkey which is to come. And he goes on to say he thinks these, the magazines ought to be tied up in brown paper, and really, he would really like the editors themselves to be tied up is what, yeah. Yeah, I mean, traditionally in the church, there's, there was the observation of Advent. And I think that's something that's kind of been lost in the modern world. The idea of Advent as its own sort of season leading up to Christmas. And obviously, Advent is a time of expectant waiting, for the Messiah to come. And, I think it's difficult. I said before the break, it's difficult even in my own family to to get my kids to wrap their heads around the idea of 12 days of Christmas, and
Right.
the Advent and then 12 days of Christmas. Obviously, we all know the song and the idea of sort of gifts being distributed across those 12 days. That one's real tough to convince my kids of. But yeah, I mean, I think Chesterton was serious about tradition and serious about what these things mean. They're not just arbitrary customs, that we observe. They point to something, and so I think that's ultimately what he's trying to say to us.
So if practically speaking, if someone wanted to adopt this tradition and start to celebrate in the way that Chesterton believes that we should, first of all, he would have been disappointed that we're having this conversation right now, right? Are we celebrating? No,
Yes.
I'm just kidding. We're celebrating prematurely. But let's pack it out. Like, what would that look like? And do you do that with your family?
Well, I try my best. I think it's hard. It's hard for us in the modern Western world to sort of to step out of our modern traditions of how we celebrate Christmas. I gave my sister and her husband a hard time this year because they had their tree out before Thanksgiving, and I'm like,
Oh
this
my!
is come on, this is unforgivable. This is and so, but that's just sort of how I think that we've gotten to a point where we sort of smash Thanksgiving and Christmas into one big holiday, and it's all sort of the same thing. But no, I think just practically speaking, I think just allowing Advent to sort of be that time of reflection and waiting, and then step out of this sort of modern idea that Christmas is one day. I mean, we do have Christmas Day, that is, of course, a thing, but Christmas is intended to be a great feast to celebrate the incarnation, and so it deserves more than one day. And so I think that's the biggest thing, and we certainly try to do it in our family, but we do it imperfectly.
I love that. I'm going to actually read your own words. I'm reading from Winter Fire, page 21. You said, "The challenge I present to you is this. Resist the urge to celebrate Christmas prematurely. Give Advent its proper due, armed with reverent patience and an expectant heart. When Christmas comes, celebrate with prolonged joy in a crescendo of festivity until Twelfth Night." And those are quotes. And I love that idea. It rebel against our modern culture by joining the ranks of the church, which outlasts all cultures. Or shall Chesterton tie you up in brown paper as well, which is kind of cute. But way to tie it back in. But that I love the idea of slowing down, resisting the urge to hurry it up. And I confess, our Christmas tree was not up before Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. But the idea of slowing down and pace. I mean, right now I have work and we're all trying to like cram things in before the break, and then my sweet daughter has about 1,000 things going on, and my son just came back from college, and those are the kinds of things, if I'm honest, that have been on my heart and on my mind. Yes, of course, I'm thinking about and praying about Jesus. I'm walking through my own devotional. Those are the kinds of things that, yes, I'm doing. But if I am honest, and I always want to be honest, and I'm so sure there's so many of us who relate to this, I've barely thought about Christmas. It's been go, 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 go. And so how do you help us slow down our hearts and minds? Because it's easy for me to read that on paper. But how do we actually do it? What does that look like?
Excellent question. I mean, I feel the same way. It is a very busy time of year. and there is always that sort of race to try to get things done before the end of the year. I know, I kind of moonlight as an author. I mean, I'm primarily a filmmaker, and the film business sort of shuts down for what feels like 2 months, when you get to the holidays. And so I'm always racing to try to get things done. I just think for me personally, it's just daily rhythms of forcing myself to be silent and to be in prayer and to be in the scriptures. Even if I don't feel like doing it, even if I'm not in the right frame of mind, it's the habit of it. And your day is always different if you start that way. And so I think during Advent and Christmas, I think it's incredibly important. And I think there's always a risk too of celebrating the greatest thing that's ever happened in human history and sort of forgetting that it's the greatest thing that's happened in human history. We sort of, it kind of just becomes another thing that we do and another tradition that we observe, instead of really sitting with these ideas and meditating on them. And so I think Chesterton would encourage us to do that.
Yes. I would say that the scriptures would also meditating day and night and slowing down and one of the things that you said that just is very compelling and honest and is that I think sometimes we forget that what we're celebrating, what we're talking about is real. And so it can become a tradition, or here it is, a Christmas, but we're talking about the greatest thing that happened in the history of the world. And so this is, I love that you are reminding us to remember that who we're celebrating is real. And that is, I think, so important. So you wrote the book Winterfire. We've been talking about the book Winterfire. I've read from it, but maybe tell us a little bit more about the actual structure of the book itself.
Yeah. So Winterfire is a Christmas devotional based on G.K. Chesterton's writings, but there's a lot of fun stuff in this book. When I first started working on this project, my intention was to create something as quirky as Chesterton himself. And so the book has 30 daily devotions that you could read throughout Advent and Christmas. But then there are poems and recipes and parlor games and more Chesterton essays, and the whole book is it has Victorian illustrations. It's full color. It's really beautiful. And I said this to you the other day, Trillia, but I'm still sort of amazed that the book exists in the world and that it's finding its way to readers, because I thought this might be a difficult pitch. Is anyone going to wrap their heads around this? But I'm just so grateful that it has found its way into people's homes. And I've heard from a number of people that this has become one of their Christmas traditions, which is incredibly meaningful to me.
That is so encouraging. It's full disclosure. I acquired this book from Ryan, and I remember I just, you had a vision for it, and I do think that it takes a special person to imagine, okay, this is what I want to do and how I'm going to capture it and include the quirky things. And our team was just so excited at Moody Publishers about this book and so many people, and introducing someone for a lot of readers. They're new. G.K. Chesterton is new to them. And so, it was a wonderful thing to get to celebrate this unique offering for Christmas, and also publish it and allow people the chance to be introduced to some really interesting and fun things. When we come back, I want us to talk about some of the quirky things in the book, because I think that would be delightful and fun. But I also want to make sure people know that the phone lines are open. And here's my question. What is your favorite Christmas tradition. We've been talking a lot about traditions, and I'd love to hear, what is your favorite Christmas tradition? We will give you a copy of Winter Fire. Give us a call at 877-548-3675 or 877-LIVE-675. You, are, of course, can ask Ryan any question about Chesterton. As he said, he's not a historian, but he will try to help you know what the answer is. But I would love to hear your favorite Christmas tradition. 877-548-3675 or 877-LIVE-675, and we will give you a copy of Winter Fire because I want you to enjoy celebrating Christmas with someone who really understood what it meant to slow down and enjoy Jesus in this season. More on Living by Faith when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. I'm talking with Ryan Whitaker Smith, and we are talking about his book, Winter Fire, Christmas with G.K. Chesterton. And I have a question for you. What is your favorite Christmas tradition? Give us a call at 877-548-3675 or 877-LIVE-675, and I will give you a copy of Winter Fire. And we want to hear from you. 877-548-3675 or 877-LIVE-675. Drea in Wheaton, Illinois, what is your favorite tradition?
Well, before I tell you my favorite Christmas tradition, I want to let you know that we grew up, my mother is Norwegian. Her parents immigrated from Norway, so Christmas Eve was a big deal, but also having a white tree. And so every year my father would buy a gallon of white paint, and he would paint the Christmas tree and let it dry for a week. So
that is so interesting.
And so when I smell fresh paint, I think Christmas.
I love that.
So, but our favorite Christmas, we always celebrated Christmas Eve, and we'd have Norwegian meatballs. We would, sometimes we would go to church, but we would always open one present on Christmas Eve. And so that was and we would hear the Christmas story, and we would sing Silent Night, and we would light candles. So Christmas Eve was sort of the big deal in our family.
I love that. And that was when you were younger. Is that correct?
Yes, when I was younger, and then when I got married, we continued the tradition, but we didn't paint the Christmas tree, but we would try. I would try and find a white one, and it used to be in California you could find white trees, not so much in Chicagoland. So now we just go with a regular tree. But we have Norwegian meatballs is a family tradition, and it takes several days to make it because you have to beat the meat and make it kind of pasty like. So it was just my dad would beat the meat, and my mother would cook the meatballs, and we would always have chudkaka for Christmas Eve dinner.
I love that. Drea, stay on the line, and we will make sure that you get a copy of Winter Fire by Ryan Whitaker Smith. Stay on the line. Thank you so much. Margaret from Ohio.
Yes. I love WCRF. Oh, I just love. It's my saving grace.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. That's encouraging. That is encouraging. Did you have a Christmas tradition?
I sure did. I'm one of 10 children. Of course, we're all adults now. And we would never see any decorations at all, and no tree, nothing. On Christmas Eve, we would go to bed and think, wow. But we got used to the surprise because when we woke up, before we were in bed, and my dad would go out and get a tree, from the supermarkets, where they have them, and he'd bring it home while we were asleep on Christmas Eve, and my mom would decorate the whole tree, decorate the house, and then when we woke up, the first thing we would see in awe was the decorations, but especially the Christmas tree, because then we would run to that Christmas tree and we look at different ornaments and we'd say something like, oh, Patrick, remember making this ornament? Oh yeah, at Sister Jones' class, we made those, or whatever, some history behind the ornament, and that was so much fun.
Oh,
And we were looking at the packages. We were looking at the tree. Sometimes we didn't have very many packages because it's such a large family. So my mom made it a festive, though. We had a good meal throughout the day. We would have good meals. And so she concentrated on that. And so the story, and as children, we went to a parochial Catholic school. And so we would talk about the story of Jesus because we heard the story at school. And so as kids, we talk about, Christmas and how wonderful it was.
yes. Margaret, stay on the line. We will make sure to give you a copy of Winter Fire. I am really moved by her story because one of the things that she said is that they didn't have a lot of packages, but she remembers this time of family and gathering and this special moment. And I think sometimes that those moments are what linger on. I cannot remember what gifts I got as a kid. I just don't remember. I do remember all of my sisters piling into bed together. And we would all sleep. I have 3 sisters. We'd all sleep together for years. And I remember those kinds of things. Does her story bring anything to you, Ryan?
Well, first of all, I think Chesterton would approve of this idea. This is sort of the epitome of not celebrating Christmas prematurely, right? I mean, she didn't even see the tree until she woke up Christmas morning. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is
I think
amazing.
that'd be very difficult for most people to do these days. But we have. I was telling you before we started this morning that I think we both have a lot of family nearby, and which is a wonderful thing. And I think my parents have it's over 20 grandkids now. I have 4 kids, and so for as long as I could remember, Christmas morning has just been this. I call it beautiful chaos, but just grandkids and cousins and everybody. It's insane, but in the best way possible. And at my parents' house, they do a countdown before they let all the kids run into the room where all the presents are. And so it's like counting down from 10, and the doors open and the floodgates open, right? And everybody runs in. And it's just, I mean, after it's done, it looks like a bomb went off. There's just, wrapping paper everywhere. And totally crazy, but so fun. So that's something that I think of when I think of Christmas.
I love that. And I don't know, I'm going to make a statement that's my opinion. But I just think that celebrating Jesus and his birth should feel like this big surprise and wonder, joy and wonder. And I love that these traditions, I believe that they can point us towards that moment where we are grateful for the birth of Jesus and we can celebrate together as we're opening presents. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, absolutely. And I think that's what Chesterton continually points us towards, is that is this idea of joy and mirth. And I think, one of the things that people love about his writing is that he is obviously very witty. He's very entertaining to read. There's really no one like him. But it's this idea of this whimsy to his writing. And it just feels like he was just a big kid, just marveling at the world all the time. Like always had just these wide open eyes of wonder at existence and reality. And in the case of Christmas, there's a reason he wrote about it so much, is that he just was, he wrote from this place of joy and wonder. And I think it's sort of infectious when you read his writings.
Yes, absolutely. Before we break, I want you to tell us one of the quirky things that is in Winter Fire. One quirky thing.
Okay. Well, we have parlor games in this book, Victorian parlor games,
Right.
which most people don't know much about, but it's the kind of thing that I'm sure Chesterton was familiar with. So we have things like sixpence in pudding. You'll have to read the book to figure out what that means. We have a game called Fictionary, a game called Wink Murder, Squeak Piggy Squeak, and then Snapdragon, which almost didn't make it into the book. It's a very dangerous Victorian game where players would try to snatch raisins out of a bowl of flaming brandy. So it's not recommended. We're not recommending that people do this, but it's there's some fun stuff like that in the book.
It is a fun book, along with wonderful reflections to remind us of Jesus. Also, their recipes. So everyone, grab Winter Fire. More on Living by Faith when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. We are talking Christmas traditions and G.K. Chesterton, and I think they go hand in hand in some ways. It's been a delightful conversation, and we have callers on the line. Phyllis in Michigan, what is your tradition?
Well, my husband wanted to get away from the commercialism of Christmas. So when the kids were little, he started this thing of writing clues. And they had to figure out a clue, and then the next clue, and then the next clue, and then they would get their gifts. Now we still do that. There's like 12 clues. We have Christmas Eve, we have like a little dinner, and then we read the Bible, and then we Skype with my daughter from Florida. One year she was in Canada, and she Skyped, but she doesn't want to miss it. And they have to, each person gets 3 clues, and if they can't get it, then they can ask for help. And they just look forward to it every year. So.
I love that. I love that. Well, we want to help you build a new Christmas tradition with Winter Fire. So stay on the line, and my producer will make sure that you get a copy of Winter Fire by Ryan Whitaker Smith. Thank you so much for your call. Dan in Ohio, what's your Christmas tradition?
Well, I was going to share one, but you get a bonus. You get 2 after just hearing Phil says it. We also do a treasure hunt, we call it, and we take a Christmas carol and end with a clue, and the kids move around the house by those clues to find a treasure at the end. It's always the excitement of the gift then at the end of it. So I'm kind of in line with Phyllis. But the tradition I really wanted to share was, as I grew up, we would go Christmas Eve to a candlelight service. And my brothers and sisters and I would always hold on to our candles, get them warm as we were singing carols. And a competition became to see who could make the unique turn and bends and character out of their candle during candlelight service. Well, that continued on for my family. My daughter was really, really big in it. So we still get together Christmas Eve and go to the church they grew up in for the candlelight service, and looking forward to my grandkids there this year to help them learn how to bend a candle.
That's sweet. That it's there's all sorts of things. You never know what's going on in the candlelight service when you've got kids and candles and fire. So that makes a lot of sense with wax. We will give you a Winter Fire. Stay on the line, and my producer will make sure to get your address. Thank you so much for your call. David in Dalton, Georgia. What's your tradition?
Well, hey, good morning. And for me, it's a Christmas season. From Thanksgiving until December 25, there's just every single day. For me, the most special part is just waking up early in the morning, getting a cup of coffee, going into the den, turning on just the Christmas tree, and there with the white lights. And in the still and the quiet of that time, I'll always turn on the music of Dan Forrest, and I'll listen to the first Noel and Silent Night. And you can Google the music of Christmas by Dan Forrest. And there in the quiet and in the still with nothing but the Christmas lights and a cup of coffee and that beautiful music. And then to just turn and just share and read the Luke, birth of Christ. And just to think, take it all in. And what if you were there? What if you were living in that moment? And there, the angel Gabriel appears to you and announces to you the greatest event in the history of the world. That's the birth of his son. And the Jewish people, they were expecting this. They were looking expectantly, day after day, year after year. And after 400 years of silence, here it is. It's coming. And all through the Old Testament, the echo, the thread of the Messiah, it's Christmas is coming. Christmas is coming. And there's the announcement. And then Mary to be there alone. And then here's Gabriel in her presence and speaking to her. Mary, you have been the one. You're the one chosen. And so there, I like to just start every day and just take this in and just consider just the majesty and the glory of this special season. The fact that we have from Thanksgiving until Christmas, every single day, to listen to the music, to take in the lights, to turn on a candle and get that aroma. We have a dog, and our golden retriever, when I turn on that music, she just comes right over and puts her head right in my lap, and she's looking at me with those big brown eyes, and I think she's enjoying that same moment. Animals just seem to take in, they just seem to have that special sense that when God is present, they're listening, they're looking. I think they can share that moment with us. But it's just a beautiful time.
It is a beautiful time, and I love what you just said about slowing down, stopping, and reading the book of Luke, and soaking in the truth of the gospel while you wait and sit and listen. Stay on the line, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of Winter Fire by Ryan Whitaker Smith. Is there anything that stood out to what David said for you, Ryan?
I think that's it, isn't it? Is just carving out time to be silent and to reflect and to meditate on these things. Yeah, I love that. That's a great tradition. Wake up early, turn the tree on, have your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's great.
We have one last one. Sherry in Florida. What's your tradition?
Well, we started this tradition 50 years ago. My husband and I would go to the country at a tree farm and cut down our Christmas tree. And then we would go to a special grocery store, Fisher Foods, and buy donuts, go home and have hot chocolate and bring in our tree and decorate it. And we've continued that with our 4 grandchildren. And then both of our children, we had 2 children, are married. So we have 4 other children in our life. And then we also go ahead and do cookies and just enjoy the holiday with telling the true Christmas story about Jesus' birth.
I love that, Sherry. Stay on the line, and we will make sure to get you a copy of Winter Fire. And, I love the idea of, I would not personally cut down a tree. I think I would be a little nervous, but I love that families get together and they build these traditions. And I'm hoping that Winter Fire will be a part of your new tradition. It's Winter Fire is the book, Christmas with G.K. Chesterton. Ryan Whitaker Smith is the author, and we have been talking with Ryan. And Ryan, as we're closing soon, is there any last thoughts about G.K. Chesterton or your book that you think people need to know?
I was thinking about this quote from the book, and I thought I would just read it here at the end because I think it's one of my favorites. This is from The Everlasting Man, the book we talked about earlier that was important to C.S. Lewis. He says, he's talking about the Christmas story. Chesterton says, "No other story, no pagan legend or philosophical anecdote or historical event does in fact affect any of us with that peculiar and even poignant impression produced on us by the word Bethlehem. No other birth of a god or childhood of a sage seems to us to be Christmas or anything like Christmas. It is either too cold or too frivolous or too formal and classical or too simple and savage or too occult and complicated. Not one of us, whatever his opinions, would ever go to such a scene with the sense that he was going home." And I love that. Chesterton's amazing, but he's amazing because he'll say something so witty and you're laughing, and then all of a sudden he'll he'll say something incredibly poignant and meaningful, profound.
Yeah. So as you go into the next few days, few weeks, what is something that you're clinging to, a hope that you're clinging to in this season for Christmas?
I think the reason that so many of us, I think obviously it seems like stating the obvious, but there's the reason why we love this time of year as Christians is that it's the hope of the world.
Right.
And it is our hope, right? And I think the idea of there's something about the cold weather that you've been talking about, Trillia, the sort of, I mean, the title of this book, Winter Fire, comes from a Chesterton quote where he says, Christ is not merely a summer sun of the prosperous, but a winter fire for the unfortunate. And there's something about celebrating the greatest event in human history, this warm, cozy time of year in the midst of the cold weather. It's incredibly meaningful to people.
It is meaningful, and so is celebrating and thinking and reflecting on our Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being on the show today. Also, thanks to the behind the scenes, my producer, Karen Hendren, my associate producer, Lisa Jimchi, and my engineer, Merle St. James, and Cheyenne on the phones. You may connect with us through all sorts of social media at Living by Faith. Living by Faith is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.